We all know that person. The one who leaves destruction in their wake, not by accident, not in a moment of weakness, but by design. They move through the world like a shadow, taking joy in breaking what others build. But here's the tricky part. They don't walk in with horns and a pitchfork. They don't announce themselves as villains. No, they wear kindness like a costume. They whisper rather than shout. They smile while they set the fire, and by the time we realize what they are, we've already lost something: our peace, our confidence, our trust in people. There's a common misconception in this world that dominance equals strength, that the ability to intimidate others is a sign of power. But real power doesn't come from making others feel small. It doesn't come from control, from manipulation, or from fear. It comes from courage, from authenticity, from the ability to stand firm without needing to push others down. But for someone who thrives on destruction, control is everything. And control is always rooted in fear. Here's what I mean. A truly strong person does not need to manipulate others to feel secure. They do not need to belittle, shame, or undermine the people around them just to feel important. Strength is not about domination. It's about groundedness, about being so whole within yourself that you don't need to steal power from others. But for the kind of person we're talking about today, that kind of inner strength is impossible. So they build an illusion, they craft a facade, they wear a mask of confidence, of authority, of superiority, but underneath it all, there is fear. A fear of being exposed, a fear of losing control, a fear of being insignificant. And so they take that fear and project it outward. They control others not because they are strong, but because they are terrified of losing their grip. They silence dissent, not because they are right, but because they cannot bear to be questioned. They demand obedience, not because they are wise, but because they fear irrelevance. Think about a person in your life who has used control as a weapon. Maybe they made you feel as though your choices weren't your own. Maybe they dictated what you should think, how you should behave, who you should be. Maybe they convinced you that love meant submission, that loyalty meant never questioning them. Did that person seem truly secure? Did they radiate peace, or was their presence always accompanied by tension, by conflict, by a need to make sure everything and everyone revolved around them? Because that's the truth about control. It is not a sign of strength, but of weakness. True strength does not demand submission. It does not need to instill fear. A truly powerful person lifts others up, empowers them, encourages them to step into their own greatness. A weak one does the opposite, because when others rise, they feel their own grip slipping. And so they use tactics, subtle at first, then more blatant. They gaslight, making you question your own thoughts and feelings. They guilt trip, convincing you that setting boundaries is an act of betrayal. They use fear, whether through words, actions, or silence, to keep you in line. Because if they can control you, they don't have to face themselves. If they can control you, they can avoid the terrifying truth that their power was never real to begin with. But here's the most important thing. You don't have to participate in their illusion. You don't have to live in fear just because they do. You don't have to accept control as a substitute for love, for respect, for leadership, because real power, the kind that lasts, the kind that heals, the kind that builds rather than destroys, is not found in control. It is found in self-awareness, in integrity, in the ability to be vulnerable without weaponizing it against others. And when you walk away from someone who thrives on control, you do something remarkable. You break the illusion. You take their power away, not by fighting them, but by refusing to be controlled. And that That is real strength. Trust is one of the most fragile and powerful forces in human relationships. It is built slowly, in small moments, in quiet acts of reliability. Trust is when someone remembers the little details about you, when they show up even when it's inconvenient, when they hold your secrets with care. It's not grand gestures, it's consistency, it's honesty, it's safety. But here's the thing, trust in the right hands can build empires, and in the wrong hands, it can destroy them. Some people don't see trust as sacred, they see it as a tool, a weapon, a means to an end. This is what makes them dangerous. Not that they betray trust once, but that they cultivate it on purpose, knowing all along that they will use it against you when the time is right. How they gain your trust, people who weaponize trust don't start off by betraying you. That would be too obvious. Instead, they do the opposite. They make you feel safe. They make you believe they are the person you can count on. They might be the first to listen when you're hurting, the first to offer a helping hand. They might share their own vulnerabilities, encouraging you to do the same. They create a bond that feels deep, unshakable, and in that space, you open up, you confide in them, you tell them your fears, your mistakes, your dreams, your weaknesses. And that's exactly what they want, because now they have something to use. How they twist it against you. There's a certain kind of betrayal that cuts deeper than others, not just the kind where someone hurts you, but the kind where they use what they know about you to do it. Maybe it's a private struggle you once shared with them, now thrown back at you in the heat of an argument. Maybe it's a moment of weakness you confided in them about, now used as proof of your failures. Maybe it's your own kindness, your own loyalty, turned into a weapon to keep you stuck in a toxic cycle. They twist trust like a knife, and the worst part is you never see it coming, because they made you believe they were different. The cycle of manipulation. What makes this type of person particularly dangerous is that after the betrayal, they don't always leave. They don't always make their betrayal obvious. Instead, they find ways to pull you back in. They apologize, but not in a real way, just enough to keep you there. They blame you, making you question whether you overreacted. They act as if nothing happened, as if you imagine the whole thing, and you stay because you remember the person they pretended to be. You remember how safe they made you feel in the beginning. And a part of you hopes that maybe, just maybe, that version of them is still real. But it's not. It never was. The cost of trusting the wrong person, trust once broken, doesn't just affect that one relationship. It seeps into everything. It makes you hesitant, it makes you guarded, it makes you question the intentions of the people who actually do want the best for you. And that's the real damage. The way betrayal doesn't just hurt you in the moment, but in the long run, the way it can make you afraid to trust anyone ever again. How to protect yourself. So what do? How do you stop someone from weaponizing trust against you? The answer isn't to never trust again. The answer is to be intentional about who you trust. Watch for consistency. Real trust is built over time. Someone who is kind to you but cruel to others is not a trustworthy person. They are just selective in their manipulation. Pay attention to how they handle others' secrets. If they gossip about their closest friends, they will one day do the same to you. Trust actions, not words. Someone can say they care about you, but what do they do when you need them? When you set a boundary, when you succeed, listen to your gut. If something feels off, even if you can't explain it, don't ignore that feeling. Taking your power back. The most powerful thing you can do when someone has weaponized your trust is to take it back. Not by seeking revenge, not by proving anything to them, but by recognizing that their betrayal is a reflection of them, not you. There are few emotions as powerful and as destructive as shame. Shame is the silent predator that waits in the background, lurking beneath the surface of our interactions, always threatening to rear its head and tear us apart from the inside out. It is one of the oldest, most primal tools used to control and manipulate. It doesn't just hurt, it paralyzes. It doesn't just shame, it erases. It eats away at your very sense of self-worth and convinces you that you are undeserving of love, of happiness, of peace. And for the person who thrives on destruction, shame is one of their favorite weapons. Not because they don't feel shame themselves, but because they know how to use it against others. The nature of shame is different from guilt. Guilt is when you feel bad about something you did. It's specific, it's related to a particular action. You feel guilty because you said something unkind or broke a promise. But shame is an attack on who you are. It whispers that there is something wrong with your very essence, with your core being. It tells you you are not enough. It tells you you are unworthy of love. It tells you you will never be good enough. And the dangerous thing about shame is that when it's used as a tactic, it works. It makes you question yourself. It makes you feel so small, so defective that you will do anything to avoid feeling it again. And that's exactly what those who weaponize shame want. They want you to feel small. They want you to shrink. They want you to doubt your worth, because when you do, they can control you. How they use shame against you, the most insidious part of using shame as a tactic, is that it is rarely overt. It's not always loud, it's not always obvious. It's the subtle comments, the offhand remarks, the quiet ways they make you feel like you don't measure up. They might shame you for your appearance, your choices, your dreams, your feelings. They might make you feel guilty for wanting something that's good for you. They might use your vulnerabilities, the things you've confided in them, against you, twisting them until they become tools to make you question yourself. They may not even say it directly. It could be the way they roll their eyes when you share your successes, the way they compare you to others in a way that makes you feel inadequate, the way they make you feel like you don't deserve what you have, or that you're asking for too much when you speak up for your needs. And the worst part, you might not even realize it at first. These tactics are so deeply embedded in their interactions that they feel normal. You start questioning yourself, not them. You start believing that maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you are asking for too much. Maybe you don't deserve better. The subtlety of shame often hides behind the guise of tough love or constructive criticism. They might call it just being honest or telling it like it is, but when you dig deeper, you realize that honesty doesn't need to crush you. Constructive criticism doesn't need to be at your expense. The truth doesn't need to come with a dagger wrapped in a smile. This kind of shame isn't about helping you grow. It's about keeping you small, keeping you dependent on them. It's about making you doubt your own voice, your own worth. It's about making sure you are always seeking their approval and never feeling secure in who you are. They don't care about your progress. They care about control. The long-term effects of shame doesn't just disappear after one encounter. It builds up over time. It's cumulative. Every small dig, every quiet remark, every joke that isn't really funny, every time they dismiss your feelings, all of it adds up. And eventually it makes you question everything about yourself. You begin to believe that you can't trust your own thoughts, your own feelings. You may start to feel isolated, like no one truly understands you. You start pulling away from the people who do love you because you feel unworthy of their affection. You may even start to distance yourself from your own desires because in your mind you're not worthy of pursuing them. The worst part is that it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start believing that you don't deserve better, so you stop demanding better. You stop setting boundaries, you stop advocating for yourself. And in that way, shame doesn't just affect how you feel about yourself, It impacts how you interact with the world. How to break free from shame. So how do we break free from the grip of shame? Recognize it. The first step is recognizing when someone is using shame to manipulate you. It's not always easy because shame is subtle and insidious. But once you start seeing it for what it is, it loses its power over you. You begin to see that it's not about who you are, it's about them trying to control you. Reclaim your voice. Shame thrives when you are silent, when you shrink. But when you stand up for yourself, when you speak your truth and set boundaries, shame can't thrive in that space. Surround yourself with people who build you up, people who use shame to control. Don't want you to have support. They want you isolated. Question yourself. But when you have people who see you for who you truly are, who love you for your flaws, who celebrate your successes, who support your growth, that's where the healing happens. Practice self-compassion. The voice of shame can be loud, but it's not the truth. You are not your mistakes. You are not the things that others try to hold over your head. Practice kindness toward yourself. Forgive yourself for what you've done and forgive others too for what they've done to you. Take your power back. At the end of the day, shame works because we let it. When we internalize those messages, when we believe the lies, we give our power away. But when we decide to stand firm, to know our worth, to believe that we are worthy of love, respect, and kindness, we take that power back. Shame is a tactic, but it is one that can be dismantled with courage, self-compassion, and support. The more we refuse to let it define us, the less power it has. And the more we speak out, the more we heal. You are not the shame they tried to impose on you. You are the person who has the strength to rise above it, and that is where your true power lies. There are few things more toxic than someone who constantly plays the victim. On the surface, it seems like a cry for help, a person who is always at the mercy of life's unfairness, always struggling against forces beyond their control. But if we dig deeper, we see something far more insidious. The illusion of victimhood is a tool, it's a mask, it's a tactic used by those who are not truly helpless, but who refuse to take responsibility for their actions or circumstances. It's a way of evading accountability while garnering sympathy and control. The mask of victimhood. At first glance, the person who wears the mask of victimhood can be deeply convincing. They speak of their suffering with such passion, such intensity, that it's easy to get caught up in their story. And why wouldn't we? Who hasn't felt the sting of injustice at some point in their life? Who hasn't faced hardship or experienced betrayal? But the difference between someone who is truly a victim and someone who uses victimhood as a mask lies in how they respond. The real victim recognizes their suffering and seeks to heal. They acknowledge their pain, face it head on, and strive to move forward. They may ask for help, but they do so with the goal of growth, not just attention. The person who uses victimhood as a weapon, however, doesn't want healing. They don't want resolution. They want to stay stuck in the role of the victim because it gives them power. It gives them a reason not to change. It gives them a way to avoid responsibility. And most of all, it gets them what they really crave: attention, sympathy, and control. How they play the game? People who use the illusion of victimhood often go through life with a constant sense of outrage. They believe that the world is always against them, that everyone is out to get them, that they are unfairly treated at every turn. They may blame others for their circumstances, for their failures, for their setbacks, and rarely, if ever, take responsibility for the part they played. The beauty or danger of this illusion is that it's often wrapped in a layer of truth. Everyone has faced some sort of injustice. Everyone has had moments where they've felt betrayed or hurt. So when someone constantly replays their suffering, it can be easy to empathize. The pain is real. but the way it is used is what makes the difference. Here's how they often play the game: blame shifting. They never accept responsibility for their mistakes, missteps, or choices. Instead, they point the finger outward at their circumstances, their upbringing, their relationships, or the people around them. They convince themselves and others that they have no control over their situation. Constant comparison. They compare themselves to others in a way that always makes them the underdog. It's a tactic used to draw sympathy and to create a narrative where they are perpetually misunderstood, constantly coming up short in a world that just doesn't appreciate them. Drama is currency. Victimhood is often the source of their emotional currency. They create drama not because they seek resolution, but because they thrive on the attention it brings. The more dramatic the story, the more people rally around them. And once that attention fades, they escalate. They amplify their suffering. They turn every setback into a personal catastrophe. They perpetual struggle. They rarely, if ever, seem to find peace, no matter how much help or support they receive. There is always another hardship, another crisis, another unfairness. They keep people on edge, always waiting for the next tragedy to strike, while avoiding any efforts to break the cycle. The subtle manipulation of sympathy. The thing about the illusion of victimhood is that it can be difficult to spot, especially if you've been caught in it for a while. At first, it may look like genuine suffering. You want to help. You feel compelled to offer your support, your time, your resources. But over time, you begin to notice a pattern. You notice that no matter how much you give, no matter how many times you try to make things right, nothing changes. The suffering seems endless, the problems insurmountable. The more you try to lift them up, the deeper they pull you into their web. And that's the crux of it. The victim isn't interested in healing. They want the sympathy, the attention, the validation. They want to remain at the center of the story. They want others to believe that they are incapable of moving forward on their own. And so they keep their suffering alive, not to address it, but to use it as a lever to control the emotions and actions of others. They know that people are more likely to do things for them when they feel sorry for them. They know that by casting themselves as the victim, they can create a dynamic where they are never held accountable for their actions because they're always too hurt to be expected to change. How the illusion of victimhood hurts others. The most insidious thing about this tactic is not just how it keeps the person trapped in their own story, but how it pulls everyone around them down with them. You might think you're being compassionate by constantly offering your time, your energy, and your understanding, but in reality, you're enabling their victimhood. You're reinforcing the narrative that they are powerless and incapable of overcoming their own struggles. You're teaching them that they don't need to take responsibility for their own healing. You're inadvertently supporting their refusal to change, and worse, you may start to feel drained, frustrated, and resentful. Over time, you begin to wonder if anything will ever be enough. You begin to question your own value and whether your efforts are truly helping or just prolonging their pain. The more you give, the more they take. And in the end, you're left wondering why you never feel truly appreciated or understood. Breaking free from the illusion of victimhood, the truth is we all have moments where we feel victimized. We all have stories of injustice, of pain, of hurt. But we also have the power to take responsibility for our lives, to own our choices, and to rise above our circumstances. The first step in breaking free from the illusion of victimhood is to recognize the pattern. Understand that while it's natural to feel helpless at times, you are not powerless. You are not defined by your pain or by what has been done to you. You are defined by what you choose to do with it. If you're dealing with someone who is constantly playing the victim, it's important to set boundaries. Acknowledge their pain, but do not allow their suffering to control your emotions, your energy, or your actions. Encourage them to take responsibility for their own healing. Offer support, but not at the expense of your own well-being. And if you are the one who has fallen into the trap of victimhood, it's time to reclaim your power. Stop blaming others for your situation. Start taking action to change what you can. Seek out the help you need, but understand that the journey toward healing begins within you. True empowerment comes when we move from a place of victimhood to one of ownership, from a place of suffering to one of strength. When we stop hiding behind the illusion of victimhood, we free ourselves to step into the fullness of who we are and who we're meant to become. And in doing so, we invite others to do the same.